Welcome aboard to podcast 47 in the series of the Voyage to Back Yonder. In the last episode, I talked about how expectations seem to have been the source of most of my pain. When the should be or the supposed to be didn't happen, I was taking it as meaning something about me and my lovability, so fear ignited within me. In this episode, I felt like a real-life example of how that looked would help clarify my perspective on it. I actually had a friend whose son had decided that he didn't want to bounce back and forth in between two homes anymore, and he wanted to live with his mom, where his half-sisters also lived. So my friend contacted me to express what was going on in his life. We have a very honest friendship. So I started off my response, stating that I was sending him love and a hug. After all, that's really all we can do for anyone else. We can make it easier or harder for someone to choose to be happy with whatever's happening to them, but that's about it. We can give someone the world and they could still decide to be unhappy. So after I told him I was sending him love, I told him that I knew he didn't need rescuing. None of us do. We're living the perfect life for ourselves for that moment. Life shows us exactly what we need in that moment. So I told him that I could be his mirror just for a second. And I suggested, taking some deep breaths and letting love surround him and flow into his heart. That's one of the amazing things about emotional pain. It only hurts while the fear is there. And though the act itself may be over, the scene can keep playing over and over again in our heart, echoing, past pains of rejection. And I asked him, it sounds like you are fearing not being chosen by your son. Why is that? What does it mean about you when you aren't chosen by someone else? Who does that make you? Understandably, when we're in the midst of our pain, we probably won't be able to feel brave enough to ask ourselves questions like those because we're fearing the answer. In that state of mind, we're believing the false answers that we think will come when we're in that state of fear. But we can get to the root of our fears by answering those questions from the place of our fear ego. We can let it express its fear. We don't have to let our logical mind answer the questions and take us off the highway. So don't detour if we want to get to the root. Don't run from our emotions, flow through them. But it's okay if we detour, if we're not ready to face it. Take the off-ramp, because there will be other on-ramps back to that same highway in our life. Trust me, the lesson is repeated until it is learned to the extent that we want to learn it. So next I asked him, what do you fear will happen when people find out your son doesn't feel comfortable living in your house? What does that mean about you? Does it mean he isn't comfortable with you? Is that part of what you're fearing? And what does it mean if he does feel that way? Some tough questions. But the fear of rejection is rooted deep in this world. This place is a giant amusement park filled with rides of fear. And that's what brought us here. It's why we come here. It's why you chose to come here. Pain is a result of one of our conditional rules of our lovability not being met by something outside of us in the external world, something outside of our control. What is in our control? It's been my experience. Very little is within my control, except each person's choice about what something means to them, about others, about the world, about their God. We're taught that this plus this equals that. But we can make it mean something else if we want to, if we choose to. And we will, when we're done feeling the feelings of that roller coaster ride of fear. I reminded him that, he's a powerful, supernatural, eternal spirit being made from unconditional love. I recommended, try to find some time to sit quietly. Center yourself in the unconditional love of the universe. The Creator's limitless love, he or she has for you. Then he could see the truth. It's just a movie. A teenage boy trying to understand who he is in this world, making choices he thinks are the best for him in his wacky, hormonal world. And when he grows up, he has a son who does the same thing. Who has a son who does the same thing. It's been going on for centuries. And really, all children want to be loved unconditionally. It seems to be all we want and seek for. But when we look for that outside of ourselves in the conditional world, we face disappointment. And that appears to be the design to turn us back to unconditional love inside ourselves. And when we've had enough disappointment, that is exactly what we do. We give up the conditional love to find the unconditional love. When our fear ego has us turn to the things that brought us a blip of conditional love, whether it's alcohol, drugs, sex, possessions, jobs, relationships, all those external things, it just makes the contrast between the conditional and unconditional more crisp. Those things that give us a small trickle of worth. We come here to experience what it might feel like to be alone and rejected. But indeed, we're never alone. We're never truly rejected. The Creator of all things is always here, and a host of powerful, supernatural, eternal spirit beings are just on the other side of this invisible veil, always with us. So this is a movie. And I asked him, did you change this character you call yourself for the sake of someone else, for your son? Maybe a small part of you thought that you could protect him from riding the ride of fear in this amusement park of fear by having him in your home. I thought I changed for others in my relationships, but I discovered that I changed myself out of fear of not being enough and being rejected. But thankfully, none of my 5 long-term partners didn't not reject me. They did the job I hired them to do, to keep pointing me back to the unconditional love inside me. Until next episode, maybe look at a situation that you've been afraid to look at in the past. Breathe. Question what it is about your worth around that situation that you're fearing. Breathe. And look into your heart, past the pain, past the fear. See the unconditional love that lives there. We try to control our lives and the lives of others because we're seeking safety from those things we think will hurt us. And when we realize nothing external can hurt us emotionally or end us, the true us, then we can feel safe all the time without any input from the external world at all. Enjoy your voyage, Captain. I love you.